1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, welcome back to Country and Cold Cans. I am Logan, sitting here with Kyle, and once again, we're welcoming back Classic Rock Carter to the show. This week, big episode for you. We have been putting this record off for a little bit, but we're finally covering the new Wyatt Flores album. Welcome to the Plains. Big Wyatt Flores fans traditionally here on this podcast. Be sure to give us 5 stars, great reviews, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, link in the description to leave us a voicemail, any music recommendations, any comments, any questions, anything you just want to say, that's the place to hit us. Love to hear from you. And then check out the merch website, coldcanshatco.com. That is coldcanshatco.com. All right, Carter, welcome back.
What up? It's good to be back.
Kyle, one of these days, I'm sure, we're going to have the old team plus Carter back, but, Carter's filling in third chair, and I think he did a fair enough job last time, don't you?
Yeah, he was adequate.
He was adequate, just adequate.
I'm new Andy.
New trucker Andy.
Out with the old, in with the new.
Yeah. All right, so let's get down to business. This week, we're talking about Wyatt Flores. Wyatt Flores is somebody who the guys on this podcast, have always been a pretty big fan of. Wyatt, let's initially start with where he's at in his career, because Wyatt Flores is of that younger generation. He's within a few years of our age. I think he's a little younger than us. I saw him this past summer in Bristol, where he was playing at a music festival opening for Dwight Yoakam. Fantastic show, great live energy. His band is very good as well. And but Wyatt is one of those guys that has successfully used TikTok and Instagram and social media to help kind of bolster his career. But he's not a TikTok artist. He's not those artists like Kyle. Do you remember the guy, Ride the Lightning guy's name? I never remember it. From Penn State. It doesn't look like you remember either. But either way, he's not that guy. He's not a TikTok artist. He's a real musician.
Bailey Zimmerman?
No, it wasn't Bailey Zimmerman.
No. Ride the Light. 1 second.
Yeah,
That's
I don't
a Metallica album.
Yeah, I was thinking Eric Church for a second.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember his name, but it's not important really for this point. But Wyatt Flores is not that guy. He's not a guy that got big on TikTok.
Warren Zeters,
that's the guy. So he's not Warren Zeters. He's not a TikTok guy who got big on that. He got big because his music is good. His songwriting is good. He has a unique sound, but he also is young enough to understand how to use social media effectively. Wyatt has gone from, playing small rock clubs and bars to I think a year or two ago, he was opening for Charles Wesley Godwin on his tour. And then now Wyatt is kind of like we've been saying for a little while, he's on that Zach Bryan trajectory in terms of his popularity. He is on that kind of straight to the moon kind of rocket. He's very popular with the younger crowd. A lot of people in their early 20s love this guy. My younger brother, who is getting into the kind of this independent country kind of scene, but is not a hardcore guy like I would say like me and Andy and Kyle have been. He knew of Wyatt Flores. He's going to see him a couple of times, and he's the one that bought the tickets to the Bristol show out in Tennessee, Virginia border when we went. So it's been awesome to see Wyatt blow up the way that he has, and especially a guy with so much talent that Wyatt has. But here we are. He's released a full-length record. Wyatt's released a few EPs, a couple of LPs. And if Andy were here, let's do Andy a service and not a disservice and say Andy would say that some of his past records only had 7 songs, so it doesn't qualify as a record. It only qualifies as an EP. That's what Andy would say if he was here. So
is it an EP or an LP?
It was an LP.
Okay.
But it was like 7 songs. Andy claims that you have to have 10 minimum for in Andy's scale to be an LP. Even though I pointed out to him that a lot of classic rock bands only had 7 or 8 songs back in the day, that was neither here nor there for our boy on the Trucker Andy scale of what is a record. But I have to shout him out on that because Andy would say some of those past things didn't have enough tracks. But now, when we get into the new record, Welcome to the Plains, I would say that just from a production standpoint and from a songwriting standpoint, this one's 14 songs. this was his best work he's put out yet as a whole, as a comprehensive album. Like you can tell there's more money behind the production now than probably some of the earlier stuff. His songwriting is starting to get a little more honed in, even though there are some absolute bangers on his early stuff. But I'm very much a fan of Wyatt Flores in general, but seems like kind of the record that's going to catapult him into that next step. But it's not the album per se that's going to make the next step for him, because he's already kind of taken that with his popularity. But I think this is going to help with that, if that makes sense. The thing with him, Kyle, I think you and I have talked about this. Carter, for context for people who are not used to Classic Rock Carter's album reviews, he's a singles listener guy by his own admission. And he is not a massive country or roots music fan. So he brings a different perspective before we get into the record. But Kyle, you and I have talked about, and with Andy, that Wyatt Flores has a unique sound. He's not overly like traditional country. He's not overly like just like country that you feel like you've heard before, but he's not really like super rock. Like when he covered How to Save a Life by The Fray, it was a good cover, but still out of place. It's hard to kind of put him in a box, is the way I've always said, with sonically speaking, with the Wyatt Flores discography. But I think overall, this is, from a songwriting perspective, sonically speaking, and also just production value, in my opinion, Welcome to the Plains is his best overall comprehensive project that he has done. Kyle, I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
All right. So do you want the positive or negative first?
Well, I want both. It's your choice on what you start with.
Okay, so I'll start with the positive. This would be, I'm gonna call it the second album. I know by Andy's definition, it's not a second album, but I'm gonna call it that. I think the second album is always the hardest, especially when you have a first album that's really good. Morgan Wade, for example, first album really good. Second album, we had a lot of concerns, but I still thought the second album was good. It's not as good as the first one, but it's really hard to duplicate a really good first album.
Well, to your point there's an old saying in the music industry: you have your whole life to write for the first record, and then you have a year to write for the second one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, I really like the album. I like it a lot. He seems very obsessed with like death, kind of, in this album, which is interesting. I'm not against it. I'm always for sad songs. The one major critique I would give this album is I think it's, look, I'm not a music guy. I don't know notes and lyrics. I feel like every song has the same tune to it. Does that make sense? It has, I feel like it's almost like the same guitar melody to every song.
I actually agree with this point.
I don't think there's a lot of mix in the melody, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word.
They all sound very similar and almost.
If you were to do an instrumental of this album, I couldn't tell you the difference between the songs. That's essentially what I'm getting at. That would be my critique. But his lyricism is very good. But just the one thing I would thought of when I was going through this album, I was like, if this was just an instrumental, I don't know if I could tell you the difference between 1 through 5, 1 through 6, 1 through 7.
I think that's a bit. I don't think I agree.
I don't want
to
be harsh.
Opinions are opinions, right? But I don't think I agree with that in the slightest bit with either of you. But because I don't think that the songs necessarily sound the same, I just think they sound like they fit with the same genre.
Well,
it's kind of the same idea. Kyle, it's the same idea we talk with, and I'm not saying like, oh, Carl's wrong, I'm right. I'm saying this is opinion. It's everybody's ears are different.
Yeah,
I think it's the same kind of take we take with Riley Green, like his music.
Almost
he
in
has
the
a
inverse.
style.
Almost in the inverse.
In what way though? How's it the inverse?
Well, I think our critique of Riley Green is not that the instrumental and the background music sounds the same, but his lyrics sound the same.
I think his instrumental in the background sounds more similar than anything on this record does.
Well, Carter
maybe,
agrees with me, so I'll defer to him.
Well, maybe I'm
the thing that-
misunderstanding you. Are you saying the lyricism's too similar or the song?
No. I'm saying just the background musical. I'm saying if you had an instrumental of this record, I don't know if I could tell you the difference between the songs. Just a pure instrumental. All of the tunes. I'm not a musician, so I'm not sure if I'm using the right wordage.
No, I get the overall point you're saying. Like, yeah.
The lyricism makes the album great. It's Wyatt Flores' vocals that make the album great.
Yeah.
I think if you just took Wyatt Flores out, I don't know if I could tell you the difference between a lot of these songs, because the guitar melodies, the banjo, and the instrumentals all sound really, really similar. That would be my one critique of the album.
Well, and let me posit a alternative here. And I'm curious, and I'm this isn't rhetorical. I want your guys' actual opinions on this. So this is something I've noticed with myself and with all of us through the years. 2019, shout out early days, Country and Cold Cans, of us doing this show.
Yeah.
I don't think we know what we like or what we want sometimes, sonically speaking, because a record is supposed to have a level of cohesion. It's not a playlist.
Yes, I would agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like in the old days, I don't think this was as much of a talking point, and I'm guilty of this too. So for the listeners, I'm not saying that Kyle was wrong about this, because I've definitely said these things about Riley Green and other artists in the past. But it's just, I think we've gotten so used to the play. It's more of a social commentary now. We've gotten so used to the playlist era of streaming, where you can go from Lil Wayne to Hank Jr. And you're so used to the vastly different sounds that we forget what albums are supposed to be. Albums are supposed to be this cohesive unit that either lyrically tells a story and has a common thread, or sonically is supposed to fit together. So, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, or that not liking it is right or wrong. It's just more of a realization that just hit me right then of how I think we listen to music versus how people listen to music in a past era. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. And the other point I would add to echo your point, or to reinforce your point, would be like, on most albums, the radio hits they put out are vastly different than the rest of the album.
Especially mainstream.
Yeah, especially mainstream. So like, I know we're beating up on Riley Green. I don't mean to beat up on Riley.
No, we love Riley Green. We actually do. It's just
but his radio
like
hits
we beat up on him, but we really listen to his music and like it a lot.
But his radio hits are vastly different. And the one critique we do is like, Andy said it best, is like, you could take one lyric and just invert it on itself, and on some of Riley Green's songs, it's the same song. The point I'm making is, I think it's the inverse with this album, where the lyricism makes the songs vastly different. And what I noticed when I was listening to this was, just mindlessly listening in the truck, where you're really not paying attention to lyricism. Sometimes I was thinking, is this album on repeat? No, it's not. Okay, this is a different song. But I'm just mindlessly listening. I'm not really, I sat down and listened to it many times, but when you're just driving down the road and, you're just off in La La Land looking at cornfields where we live at, but, you're running from here to there. I just felt like sometimes I was just mindlessly listening, and I was like, I don't think I could tell the difference between this song and the last one. And it's not it's purely based on the sonic.
No, I get what you're saying. Like, you're saying if it's in the background, if it's in the background,
if it's in the background, it just
I can understand that.
Yeah, that would be my. But if you were, I don't want to. But I don't. This is not like I hate it.
No. 100%. My counter to that, though, is, have you ever listened to a George Strait record or an Alan Jackson record? I would say that's the same true if you're not actively listening.
Or any album,
or
really,
any
between
album.
Most bands.
Yeah, like if you're not actively listening, that's probably true.
Yeah, that's probably true. The counter I would make to that is like the radio hit on the album is different. So it's a change of pace, whether or not it's the beats per minute. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
There's always that one song or maybe two or three songs on an album that change the pace, the beats per minute. I mean, take for example, like Brooks and Dunn, the '94 record or whatever. It might be '96. Hillbilly Deluxe is way different than the
No,
rest of
that
that
is
album.
from like 2006.
Is it 2006? Okay.
There was no chance in Blue Shiny Hell that they would have put Hillbilly to that abomination. I love Brooks and Dunn, but that
Yes, I do
abomination
too.
of a song out in
That's
'96.
just like one. That's just
That
like
was a
one.
2006. We
Oh,
want to be on the
2006,
radio
okay.
kind of song.
Yeah, but I mean that's just like one example I always use where like it's so vastly different from the rest of that record that like it's almost like a pace setter. Like,
yeah,
all right,
Well,
we're gonna wake you up from all the real stuff that we're writing, and here's our
That's-
radio hit.
probably another very extreme example of that. And see, I admit, just to be upfront with the listener right now, I don't like that. I don't like that the radio single sounds so vastly different, like you're chasing a trend, like you're trying to be relevant, and then the rest of the record sounds different. Is one of my favorite mainstream artists is Dirk Bentley. His record he had where the lead single was the lead single was actually Bourbon in Kentucky, but it flopped, so he had to put out a very like catchy radio song. Drunk on a Plane was very different from the rest of the album.
Yeah, I mean, even if you like dislike it with Drunk on a Plane, it served a purpose.
No, it served a purpose. I agree, but see, I think contextually speaking, though, why it's not on the radio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it's more of an artistic endeavor, and it's not a Nashville music label saying, "Hey, you've got to put out something to paint by the numbers for the radio stations to play." No, this is why the people listen to Country and Cold Cans, because we get into these little debates mid-review. But no, like I agree with you that is kind of like the change of pace, I guess, in some ways. I don't think the tempo is the difference, because there's a wide range of tempo on this record, but I think that it's the difference in sonic sounds we hear, or I guess that's redundant, but the difference in the sonics that we hear on this record.
And I don't want that to come off as like a critique, like I dislike it. It's just
no.
Yeah, I mean that was like the main tempo, like because I was riding up by your parents' house, Logan, to check in on a job I was doing Monday afternoon, listening to the album, and you know how far we live away from each other, or your parents live from my house. It's not that far, but it's a good 10-15 minute drive.
Yeah, it's at least 4 to 5 songs.
Yeah, enough to get into it.
Yeah,
and I was just mindlessly driving, and I was just like, I don't know if I've really. I was just like, mindlessly listening. I was like, damn, a lot of this sounds the same. And like I said, once again, I don't want to. That's not a critique of like how good the album is. That is just a critique of like mindlessly listening.
Yeah.
Which is the main critique I have is like, a lot of the background instrumental almost sounds the same.
Well, no, I don't disagree with you on the point. I think that I'm trying to expand beyond just the looking at the record singularly. Sorry, that word was hard to say. Because I think that's the same critique why Andy doesn't like 90s country.
That's fair.
Andy says it all sounds the same. It's the same reason I don't like your butt rock from the early 2000s. Because to my ear, this is the counter to me on this, right? Yeah, to my ear, it all sounds the same, where to you it does not. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes 100% sense. Yeah. I mean, and to an extent, in the the very like wide most generalization we can make, you're right. I mean, early 90s country and late 90s, early aughts rock does sound a lot alike. It was that's why they call it a genre. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, look, Zach Top, as much as we love him, his record is very cohesive.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like it all fits together.
Yeah. But
Well,
I mean, even on his record, I mean, you get was it the song the one that's talking about dirt turns to gold, and then you have beer for breakfast, which are they don't sound completely different, but they have a tune shift, if you will.
Well, I would argue there's plenty of songs on this record that do that though.
Yeah,
Because Old Susanna is different from When I Die, which is different from. Hold on, let me cut this volume down so it doesn't show up on the podcast. Falling Sideways is very different from When I Die. Like I don't think that this song is the same tempo and same melody and same guitar track over and over again with just different lyrics. I think that's my take against what you guys are saying. I think that
has Carter even made a take yet?
No. That's why I was about to shift to him. I think that I was about to shift to him because I was going to say, Carter, as a non-Roots music listener, as a guy who has, to give full context for people who don't know you like we do, who loves classic rock, hence the name Classic Rock Carter, but lately has been yacht rock Carter, if I do say so myself. Every time I've ridden with you in your Jeep, it is yacht rock playing. The question is, all right, so where are we at here on Welcome to the Plains?
So another thing that I have to mention to a lot of people is that I'm a radio listener. I'm a playlist listener. I don't like to listen to a lot of the same artists and over and over and over again. So take what I say about Welcome to the Plains with a grain of salt. Another thing that the big LD knows about me is that I'm not much for low tempo, slower songs, songs that are a bit softer. So there's a large chunk of this album that really didn't mesh that well with me. I understand the whole concept of, this Wyatt Flores, just like any other artist, has his genre. He has his strengths. He knows what he's good at. He knows what his fans want, and he's going to give it to them in these albums. I mean, that's literally how, selling a record works.
Yeah. This record's very mid-tempo.
Yeah. Freaking ZZ Top ain't putting out a mariachi album and acting like, and then surprised when their fans don't buy it.
Or if we want to use a very extreme example, AC/DC is not deviating from their formula.
Yeah, exactly. AC/DC is going to give you a...
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly. AC/DC ain't going to give you a song not about having sex and how big their dick is without a big rockin' anthem to it. But so essentially just TLDR, too long didn't read my
Is that what
thoughts.
TLDR means?
Yes, too long didn't read.
Oh, I never knew that.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. You now know some internet lingo.
Look at these Zoomers.
That's millennial.
Too long didn't read.
The up-tempo songs. Welcome to the Plains. Don't want to say goodnight. I'd say Stillwater probably fell into up-tempo. Little Town. I liked them. I like those songs quite a bit. I was in the same boat as Kyle in that I was mostly listening to this while riding around, mostly to and from work. And yeah, in between those songs, those low tempo songs, just all kind of melded together in this just him softly whispering in the background while he barely strums his guitar with barely any other background instruments playing. And I was bored to tears. Actually, I was bored almost to sleep while driving. You nearly made me run off the road, Wyatt Flores. Thanks for that. I'll see you later, Mr. Flores.
And Wyatt, just so you know, Carter's a guest host. So if you want to come on the show, we'll kick him off for the week that you will be here.
And then I'll show up anyway.
I'm really interested, Logan. Not to cut you off, Bert. I'm interested to see what our favorite songs are.
I am too.
But so, in other words, look, I'm not going to say that this is a bad album. It's not a good chunk of it. Probably 2/3 of it are not for me. I'm willing to admit that. I'm man enough to admit that this album is not for me, and I'm okay with that.
I will say that the songs you mentioned that you liked were literally like half the record.
Okay, well, half the songs are the ones.
Yeah.
I believe they were also the 4 or 6 radio hits too.
Yeah, I like the radio hits.
It was
I
the
like radio
singles.
hits.
Yeah, the
Singles,
singles.
I
I
can't
call them
help it.
radio hits, singles. Yeah,
Well, that's not quite the same.
yeah.
I can't help it, but that's my taste.
Carter's
That's how I
all
like
about
it.
play the hits.
Yeah, I'm absolutely a play the hits guy. And when it comes to albums, I don't listen to a whole lot of albums, and the albums I do listen to are stuff like
From the 1970s.
no, usually the 80s. Usually it's stuff like the Traveling Wilburys, which is literally a super group full of 5 different, incredibly different artists who go through different genres throughout throughout the album as they're just having fun.
Well,
Like-
you know what I think? I just had a realization, Carter. That makes sense. You know why I think Kyle has his Sonic take that he does? You know what he's been listening to the most recently?
What has he been listening to the most?
Sabrina Carpenter, pop music. And
Yes.
the variation of sound on that record is just so all over the place.
It is. You're right. Yeah.
I think that's influencing his like this all sounds kind of similar.
It's not only I've been out. Yeah. It's not just Sabrina Carpenter. I've been all into the like Zoomer bar girl scene. Got into Tate McRae for a minute.
You're actually listening to Tate McRae?
Yeah, some of her shit's pretty good. What's her name?
Let's be
Lana
honest.
Del Rey. Lana Del Rey. Happy
Yeah.
for her. She got married. You know,
That's
shout
not
out.
really a Zoomer thing.
That's
though.
not
kinda-
Zoomer,
She
bro.
millennial. She more
She's
millennial.
millennial.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
But-
Happy for her, she got married.
Before we get into our favorite songs of the record, Carter, I think you want to know this too. Kyle, are you listening to Tate McRae or are you watching her music videos? 'Cause there's a huge difference.
Yes.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Plead the fifth.
All right. Let's go reverse order this time. Let's talk about our 3 favorite songs and any honorable mentions that you may have and why you liked them. Carter, if you want to start as the non-roots music guy.
So a good chunk of these songs, as usual, when it comes to this show, heard of quite a few of them riding around with the big LD in his car. When it comes to my favorite on this album, it's gonna be really, not a huge thing that a lot of people do, but it's honestly the first track. It's the namesake of the album. It's Welcome to the Plains. I think that is a really nice, quick, get you all amped up, nice pace setter for the album altogether. And honestly, I consider it to be my favorite. The big single off the album, Don't Want to Say Goodnight, that's my second. I can't deny that is just a fantastic song all the way around, lyrically, vocally. I really like when Wyatt kind of picks his voice up a bit. I don't like him. I don't like, when I die and then lay down. No. I don't want to listen to you do ASMR into your microphone.
I like the emotion in his voice, but anyways, go ahead.
No, I want the intensity in the voice. I like the intensity. I don't want to say goodnight. And if I had to give a third, I'm going to give it to Stillwater as my third. Shout out to Little Town. That's a good song too. Honestly, if we'd done this yesterday, I probably would have had Little Town as my third. But I don't know, something about Stillwater. I've listened to it again this morning on the way to work because I had an extra long commute because the main road to work was closed. So I had to go around Malibu to get to my thumb and got to listen to more of the album than usual. But Stillwater kind of won me over during that ride to work. Really like the message of that song.
Oh, yeah. Stillwater being like where Oklahoma State is. I believe he went to Oklahoma State. But it's, that song where girls come to college and or visit their friends in a college town, and they're so focused on the guys from the other town. They have the best 4 years of their life, but then those that stick around, that's their life in Stillwater, as he says. But it's just like they're not giving you the attention, and you have the bad memories of sticking around there. I love that song too. I think that's a fantastic song.
Mr. Cal.
All right, so my favorite song on the record by far is "Forget Your Voice." I did a little bit of research, and Wyatt has been on interviews talking about the songs about his grandparents who fought dementia. Really, really deep song, and also very sad because we've all had relatives that start to get old and are not what they used to be when you were kids. And it's hard to watch, and really touched a bone in me. My cold heart really did. That one did sit with me. I really like that song a lot. It's also a little different than the rest of the record. I like the guitar on that song a lot. But mainly, I mean, I like, me and Logan, I mean, you are both very sad boy country guys, but that also felt a little bit more raw, emotional. Like he's been through it. He touched on it, and knowing that I had a new appreciation for the song when I looked up and he had done an interview where he had talked about how both his grandparents battled dementia, and I was like, yeah, that gives it a new level of me.
Yeah. And as someone who has had a granddad, go through a 5 to 7 year, whatever it was, battle with dementia. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you on that and get that completely.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I liked "Oh Susanna" because also I didn't know that he had taken a little bit of a hiatus earlier in the year for a mental health break.
Yep.
I didn't know that about him. So I mean, and that song is all about like just doing too much and not looking after yourself.
Yeah. Because the context behind that, he did say, was he felt like he was trying to be too much for the fans in terms of the music, and that's where I think the reference in the song, the lines where he's saying, "I couldn't carry a cross of wood. Who the hell did I think I was?" You know what I mean? The reference of like him trying to be too much from what he's capable of. The cross of wood being obviously a reference to like Christ our Savior. So it's like he is just a man, and he's a flawed man who has issues, and he's like, I just couldn't handle it anymore, kind of thing.
Yeah, as we all are. And not to go too far down the rabbit hole, me and Andy are on one view of the world where, you're a little more sympathetic to a lot of things than me and Andy aren't. Gave me a little bit of a pause and retrospective on that issue. And I kind of, in a very like obtuse way, relate this song to Morgan Wallen's one song where he's like, God, what is it?
Living the Dream.
Living the Dream, yeah. Where it's like, people just don't understand. Like, well, yeah, you're a rock star. What do you have to complain about? You're living the dream, but you also have the weight of a lot of people on you, and this song gave a lot of perspective of, you're just a guy, man. We all are just a guy at the end of the day, and you can only really bear so much. So yeah, I didn't know he had taken a little hiatus at the beginning of the year, but that's good for him. Glad all that worked out for him. And I had to pick a third. It probably would be When I Die. Just overall really good. I mean, just more of the just straight up like pure Wyatt Flores we've known. Which is,
and that song mixes the serious with the humorous at the same time. Because he's like, when he's talking about his, like, the lead first line is like, when I die. But then he goes into it and he talks about how if he falls, like, he falls out of the casket, he hopes they put him on his back in on his side because that's how he sleeps, or like wanting the flowers to be all around because he's like, that'll look like my album cover and that'd be pretty dang cool. Like, so it's that kind of like juxtaposition between the very serious subject but with a little bit of humor that I think that you and I both appreciate and enjoy when people employ it.
And the main reason I like the song is just because it's almost identical to like I've always said this on the whole time we've done this show. It's like your first impression is everything. Like what I think of you when I hear your first song is almost like what I think every other song should sound like. I just have this really innate bias in that way. And this song is about the closest thing to the first I can't even remember what the first Wyatt Flores song we listened to was, but I'm not saying everything has to be the same, but you know, when you hear that when you get that first taste, it's like, oh, this is what it tastes like every time. It's like when you have your first sip of beer, Carter. Every beer should taste as good as that one beer.
I really hope not, because my first sip of beer sucked.
What was your first sip of beer, Carter?
That's a great question.
It wasn't even really a beer. It was kind of a beer. It was a Limerita.
That's right. It was a Limerita.
Oh, no. You were
We got it from the Circle K in Raleigh on Western Boulevard.
It's amazing Logan remembers that.
It does. That was a great night.
I have a great memory. And I will say my memory is bolstered by nicotine. Shout out Zen and Velo.
Please sponsor us.
Yeah.
Please sponsor us.
Because that's scientifically true. It does keep your memory sharp.
That didn't work for me, and I forget everything. I have to make myself 15 notes.
Just think of how worse it would be if you didn't do it.
I probably couldn't remember what day it is.
No, was that your 3?
Yes, that's my 3.
All right. So, yeah, I'm with you. Oh, Susanna is probably one of my favorites on this. It was one that I initially, honestly, didn't like a whole lot. But then the more I listened to it, the more I listened to the lyrics, because a lot of artists that within the genre of music, right, the independent country scene, the independent roots music scene, it requires multiple listens to have an appreciation for. We talk about that with Zach Bryan's music. Like, and this one was one of those ones for me. And it was like, the more I listened to it, the more I was like, okay, I kind of get what he's getting at. And then when I heard the context of the song from him in an interview where he's talking about like feeling like he let his fans down, and I was just like, okay, this song's actually very fantastic when you understand the context and then hear the lyricism, especially like he was trying to put himself in this position of being more than he was capable of being. And then he had to take like a step back. Fantastic song all the way around. Probably next, this was the number 2 was definitely hard to pick for me. When I Die, I did love the mix between, I guess I would say the serious and the humorous, but I would probably have to go with Forget Your Voice for the similar reasons you said, Kyle, just because there's some heaviness and some seriousness to the song. And I was just like, yeah, like that's just a great, great song all the way around. It is a little bit of a departure, like you guys said, in some ways sonically. But number 1 by far and away was The Truth. I loved The Truth from the very first time I heard it. This idea that just the opening lines of the song is like, one more sleepless night in a home that's just a house. The bed was made for 2, so I leave that space for you. It's okay, I'll take the couch. And then as it goes into the chorus, he's talking about how he just wants to lay in the bed and dream of someone that ain't you. Act like the lonely's really dead, but rest my head before 2. Now, why does he hold on like there's something left to lose, but he's going to pretend he's not alone until this lie becomes the truth. I love the hook to that song. I love the structure of this song. I love the message of this song, because there's been those moments in most people's lives to where either a relationship has ended, unfortunately, or you've just felt this sense of loneliness. And then you've sat there in that sense of loneliness and you've thought, man, I wish this wasn't the case. And you try to find ways to cope with it. And in his case here, like I said, in the very first verse of the song, he's deciding to not sleep in the bed that he and his significant other were. So he's sleeping on the couch. So in that, he just wants to sit there and pretend it's not the case until the lie that he is by himself and he doesn't have someone with him, or and that someone's going to be with him, becomes the truth. That song was an early kind of like favorite of mine, and it's kind of continued as I've gone down. I think it's funny because I think that the four that I've liked, like, you know how on Spotify,
Yeah.
we're in the Spotify era, right? Apple
Yes.
Music era. You can like them and add them playlists. The four that I did organically was Forget Your Voice, The Truth, Don't Want to Say Goodnight, and Old Susanna. Those were the kind of the initial ones that when I'm driving, I hit the add to playlist. But yeah, those were my three favorites. All right.
It'll be a hell of a mix when you have Lil Wayne after him.
Yeah, I know, right? Now I wouldn't have Lil Wayne, but
I was just trying to tie back into your earlier.
well, no, that's a reference to the 2013 Bro Country era, where everybody had to sing about mixtapes in their tractor rap that they sang on the radio, and be like Lil Wayne bumping on the iPod. I think it was what Tim McGraw said one time.
I like to take my pickup truck down the dirt road.
Yeah, and that would be the next following. Be a little thing over there shaking her sugar in my Dixie cup. So yeah, different era. Thankfully, music has improved since then. But all right, let's close things out with a quick draft. 4 songs each for all of our teams here. We're gonna do. So I started with the kind of my take on it. Carter started with his favorite songs. Kyle, you start with the draft. It'll be in order, not snake style. Just go in traditional draft order. Kyle, Carter, then me. So take it away. 4 songs each. Let's rock and roll. Here's the Wyatt Flores. Welcome to the Plains draft.
My first pick is Forget Your Voice. Love that song. Even more reinforced it when I watched an interview where he talked about how it was about his grandparents with dementia. It just completely sold me on that song. Already loved it, and then saw that, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's really good and really deep. Love it.
Carter?
Well, I'm going to go out of song order because I don't think one of y'all are going to grab it. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab the big single, Don't Want to Say Goodnight, because I know that probably was high up on y'all's too, and I want to just go ahead and sneak in and steal that right off the start. I think this is honestly it probably altogether is the best song on the album, though I personally have a bit more of a preference to Welcome to the Plains, but neither one of y'all talked about that one, so I want to just go ahead and grab the big single right out of the gate.
Well, because you said that, I'm going to say Welcome to the Plains, because I do think that song's fantastic. It's a perfect way to kick off the record. It kind of slowly gets into the guitar riff, and then like the sonics on that particular song was literally the perfect way to start this album. I love, and this doesn't happen often, but I do love the fact that the title track was the first track. So because I really do like the song a lot, and because Carter didn't think somebody was going to pick it, I'm taking it as my first pick.
With the first pick in the second round, I'm taking Old Susanna. As we discussed, just him taking that mental break and realizing he's only human. He's just a man. He's just a guy, and only can do what you can do. And just being able to live with that. Deep song, really liked it a lot. The verse about bearing a cross, fantastic. That's my second pick. Carter's
CRC.
Well. For my second round draft pick, the Classic Rock Coalition picks Stillwater. Again,
Carter's like, no pokes.
And I thought this was a great song, mostly because of the fact of this isn't really a topic that a lot of songwriters really go after. College life for, the party girls in college. And, what do they do after college? Where do you go from there? If that was your whole life for those 4 years. What do you do when you're stuck in that town after all your friends moved on? And honestly, even just beyond that, just the delivery of the lyrics. This is probably one of the more intense songs of the album, and not just like in a positive way. It almost has a bit of like almost anger to it from Wyatt. And I kind of like that from him. I like him being a bit more angsty and a bit more angry than when he's whispering his way through a sad song. So yeah, I'm taking Stillwater.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to take my favorite one next. Is The Truth. I waxed poetic about him, honestly, a minute ago. So I'm not going to have to or as my favorite sports podcast say, we don't have to relitigate the issue.
So,
I think.
But I do want to add here that The Truth is probably my number 5, solely for the opening guitar riff. Did you kind of catch what it sounds incredibly similar to? It sounds incredibly similar to In the City by the Eagles.
See, I didn't hear that. I actually heard it kind of having an homage. Not that it sounds that similar to The Truth by Jason Aldean, which was one of the last really great songs Aldean put out by the same title. I'll have to go listen to In the City and put it side by side and hear it.
That was on Aldean's OG record.
No, it was his second or third, I think.
Second or third, okay.
He put out some good music before he decided to put out literally the same song over and over. But yeah, The Truth.
In a small town.
Yeah. Try that in a small town. What was he? He said,
see how
carjacking at a red light.
Yep.
Yeah, because that happens every day.
See how far you make it down the road, Carter.
But yeah, you try that in a small town.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to. Like all them carjackings I do.
Because
all them old ladies I beat up and steal their money from.
That's right. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
You would learn a lesson.
Yeah, that's why I can't do it in my small towns, because I know all them big strong rednecks are gonna come beat me up.
Good old boys.
Yeah, them good old boys.
Yeah, because we all know one thing: there ain't no crime in a small town.
Yeah, there's none. Absolutely none.
There's definitely no drug I can't speak. Drug epidemic from opioids.
No,
or just general crime.
Man, the spin would disagree.
We say that as people from a small town. You two still live there, and we all have an affinity for the place. But let's call a spade a spade. There's crime in the country. There's crime in the city. But anyways, I digress.
We say that from a small town that has a very bad opioid problem for like the past 15 years.
Yeah. But anyways, all right, Kyle.
Number 3. My number 3 is going to be "Angels Over You."
Good song.
Life sucks. Life's hard. But, words of wisdom from I don't really know if it's his mom or his grandma, or it's a matriarch of some sort in his life. Telling him, there'll always be angels watching over you. It's just sounds like something, our mother, our grandmother, or great grandma, or an aunt, somebody in our life always told us. And the songs are generally about how hard life is and how it sucks most of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm there for that because it's true. But, you get those words of reassurance from a senior woman in your life. Not senior as in old, but an elder woman, an elder statesman of a woman.
And usually a Bible-believing, praying elder woman who is reminding you there are angels looking after you and they're praying for you. And you have to remember what James 5:16 says, prayers of the righteous availeth much. So
very good. It's just a reassuring song, but it's like the optimist meets the pessimist in one song. We're all young. Shit sucks. But there's words of wisdom.
Oh, yeah.
Being bestowed upon him in the song.
Numero 3. Classic rock harder. Or should we say yacht rock harder?
The third
Classic
pick.
Rock Consortium.
I was saying the coalition, but
Oh,
I'll do the consortium as well. My third pick is going to be Little Town. This is a song that I think really speaks to. I think it honestly speaks to the three of us, and if the trucker were here, he'd probably agree. As in, this probably really describes our hometown and our home area very well. We grew up in a town that business boomed for decades, and then probably about the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, business stopped booming, and
Cotton mill shut down.
yeah, a lot of the jobs went overseas, or
Damn you, NAFTA.
NAFTA went from a manufacturing economy to a finance economy. Finance bros got rich, and the regular people got the short end of the stick.
But
amen, brother.
And as somebody whose grandpa worked at
all our grandparents,
all of our honestly,
all of us come from manufacturing.
All of us come from our families. Really got a lot of our grandparents got their money through the mills here in town, and I mean, some of them are still there. Our paper mill's still here, still kicking, even though it's gone through multiple owners over the past few decades. But our town ain't the way it used to be. Our town used to be big and booming, and most people probably couldn't even find it on a map now if you didn't come from our area. I've had many a person. I remember when we went to college, I'd tell people, "Oh yeah, this is my hometown," and they go, "Well, where's that?" And I pretty much would have to tell them, "Okay, so you know this town? Okay, well you go to this town, and you know that town. Well, then you have to go north of that town." Like I had to draw out like this whole big thing for them, and they just kind of go, "Oh," and then we drop the subject. And we didn't come from no big city like Raleigh or Charlotte. We came from a little town, exactly like Wyatt describes here. And in this song, he pretty much is talking about how a lot of people have left that town. He's still sticking around for that one girl that he doesn't think is ever going to leave. And if she ain't going to leave, he ain't going to leave either.
Here we go. All right, my next pick, my third pick, is going to be one that neither of you would pick, especially you, Carter, because you said you don't like the lower tempo, softer songs, but it's a fantastic song, and it's a song called Habits. In this song, he is sitting there and talking about how he used to have a heart of gold that she loved to hold, but she'd put it in her pocket and hide it from the cold. But then it gets into the chorus, says, "I picked up your habits, I learned from the best. I turned a heart to ash like a drunken cigarette." So while there's about to break up, he picked up her habits of non-caring, and his heart turned to being dark and cold. Said that, "I don't feel nothing inside as I look into your eyes, or maybe I'm just jealous that she feels enough to cry. But you know what? It's the end of the line, baby." As Carter would, to reference the Traveling Wilburys, it's the end of the line. And he picked up her habits on this. And as Michael Scott would say, how the turntables
have turned.
Yeah. So, Habits, number 3 pick. It's the end of the line. Kyle.
Maybe somewhere down the road away.
It's the end of the line. Last pick, Kyle. It's the end of the line.
I'm going with that. Nobody's picked When I Die, have they?
Pretty sure Logan did.
Did Logan, you pick When I Die?
I picked Welcome to the Plains, The Truth, and Habits.
Oh, the When I Die.
Oh, surprised that one took so long.
When I Die. We talked about it. It's really good. It's also a little tongue in cheek. Right up my alley.
Yeah. I said earlier, and like you referenced at the beginning, we don't have to relitigate the past here. Good song. Carter, last pick.
A lot of the ones that I was really into have already been picked. There is one more song that I thought was pretty good, and that's Falling Sideways.
You. I can hear the huff from here.
Yeah, yep. I really liked. It was a little slower than I usually like, but it was still just kind of angsty enough that I really liked it. I don't really have a ton to say about it because, like I said, it's not one that I was really super into and like analyzing in depth, but good song. Number 4, into the team. Congratulations. You're the last pick.
All right. Well, my last one is Only Thing Missing Is You. This one is prototypical neo-traditional stylings. It's not hardcore neo-trad, but it's neo-traditional stylings. It would not feel out of place with 90s country, especially if you were to give a more 90s country vocal with it, for those that may disagree. But the reality is this song is a song that's like, without love, it doesn't matter how much success you have, you still feel empty. You can be out on the road, you can have filling out arenas and stadiums, but you don't have things that are actually fulfilling, things that actually have value. There's an emptiness that's there. And in this case, it's speaking in the sense of a relationship that brings value and goodness to your life. So you can be out on the road and doing all these great things, but the only thing missing is you. Last pick of the Wyatt Flores. Welcome to the Plains draft.
Who goes undrafted?
There was 2. Let me see if I can remember off the top of my head. I believe The Good Ones, which is a good song. Right Here With You was the only ones that were undrafted.
Yep.
So, but yeah, this is Country and Cold Cans. Be sure to give us 5 stars, great reviews, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Check out the website for hats and t-shirts, coldcanshatco.com. That is
Buy the shirt.
coldcanshatco.com. Buy something. Best way to support the podcast. And you know what? Like we said, link in the description. Leave us a voicemail. Any questions, any music, any comments, anything you want to say. That is the place we will hear you. We will play it the very next week. So please give us a shout out. I am Logan, sitting here with classic yacht rock Carter of his Coalition Consortium, and Kyle. We'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.